Hey friends, Shay here. So today I'm here to film a wrap up for you. It's been a minute since I've done a sit down wrap up, but I am very, very excited to be doing this with you. So as always, I'm going to start with the manga and then we will move into the books. I hope you'll check out everything, but timestamps will be down below if you really want to skip ahead one way or the other. So first things first. I do have like a volume 1 showcase where I read a bunch of anticipated things, and I've kind of made this a tradition to like try out a bunch of new series early on in a year. I did this last year and you guys seem to really enjoy it. So yes, I am very, very excited for you guys to check that out if you haven't. It was a really fun time and I read a lot of really anticipated ones in there, so definitely check those out. All right, let's move on to the other things that I haven't talked to you about yet. So first up, I have You Are My Happiness. In You Are My Happiness, we're following a guy who's in college who kind of lets people walk all over him, and then we have this other guy who's a quote-unquote devil who kind of takes advantage of that. This is a really interesting exploration about how you can be a user or be used by other people, and though this isn't a new favorite for me, it left me a little confused in places and things. I'm not sure it's my thing, but I do want to try reading it another time to see if that changes at all. And I know I have friends that have loved this, but I would recommend either borrowing it from a friend or seeing if you can get it from a library before you buy it for yourself. Next, I have The Two Lions. I really loved this BL. This is essentially about two different guys named Leo. One is light-haired, one is dark-haired. It's about the friendship that they form, and then it develops into more. I'm not going to say much more than that because this is one best experienced rather than told. So yes, would recommend, really enjoyed this one. The next one on this list is Young Girls Don't Play Fighting Games Volume 2. I'm really loving this series. I'm honestly shocked that more people aren't talking about this particular one. So essentially we're following a dormitory full of girls who aren't supposed to be playing video games because it can be too distracting for their schoolwork. And then we have the jewel of the school, they call her the Lily, I believe, who gets caught by our main person that we follow playing fighting video games. Our main character used to play a lot of fighting games to get along with the boys in her neighborhood, but she kind of retired that side of her life, and now this girl is pulling her back into that. In the second volume, we get a better look at the dynamic of the dormitory, and it's a lot of fun. Would recommend checking out the series. Again, I'm shocked more people are talking about it. Next up, I have Golden Japanesque Volumes 3 and 4. I am really happy to have been continuing on in this series. It's been a lot of fun for me. I really feel like these two volumes moved our plot forward. I felt like they were a little more plot heavy, less character driven, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. This series kind of needed to have the plot moving a little bit now that we've established our characters and the dynamic between them. So this really gets super interesting. Some things get flipped on their head, and now I'm really intrigued and anxiously awaiting Volume 5. And yes, this is ongoing in Japan, so eventually we're going to get caught up, but I'm going to have to wait forever for volumes. But I'll be okay, I guess. But anyways, would still recommend this series. I feel like it's gotten better with each volume, so would recommend continuing. All right, these next 3 volumes are all finales to series that I am sad to see go, but I really enjoyed the ending of them anyway. So the first one I have here is Love Me, Love Me Not Volume 12. This is the conclusion to this series. I feel like it ends perfectly for the kind of story that we have. Essentially, this all comes around to the friendship between these two girls and how they help each other grow and change over the course of their friendship. It is fantastic. I love it so very much. This is definitely my favorite Shaegeeksout, so I think I'm going to let one of my Shaegeeksout series go because there's one that I know I won't revisit, and this one I would revisit over and over again because I love it so much. So yes, those are my thoughts. The next one is an ending that kind of let me down a little bit, and that is Fiancé of the Wizard Volume 4. So in this one, I feel like we needed one more volume to kind of let the story breathe a little bit, have a little bit of room to breathe, because I feel like this 4th volume was very action-packed. So I don't know if the series got canceled and then so they had to cram all their plans into one volume. I don't know the whole story here, but I feel like it needed one more volume to kind of let everything that happened breathe a little bit and give you a minute to kind of catch up with what was going on. What happened over the course of the story wasn't necessarily bad. It just felt too rushed for me. So like I said, I wish it had one more volume to just kind of breathe. So this series all the way through for me was a 4. It could have been a 5 if it had had a little more room to breathe in the last 2 volumes, I would say. But yes, very, very good. Would still recommend the series. And then last but not least for my manga pile is Manly Appetites Volume 3. I am so sad to see these two go. I really loved how organically and slow burn this series was. Minagishi is the perfect partner for any chubby person. I love him so much. And I especially love him for Otsu because he helps Otsu become comfortable in his own skin. And that is something that is a rare thing that I just love and adore so much from this relationship. And there's a character introduced in this 3rd volume that ends up really adding a layer of humor and fun to the story that I think was really amazing. And I'm not going to say who or what that is because I think you need to experience it for yourself. But yes, one of my favorite BLs of all time. It's only 3 volumes, y'all, so definitely check it out. Okay, so from here, let's move on to the books that I've read. So let's start with the titles that I only listened to the audiobooks, so I do not have physical copies of. So the first one I've got here is called Cupid's Bow. This is by Brenda Jackson. This is a really cute short romance. And again, because it's so short, I don't want to say too much about it. But I just really loved my time with these characters. And it felt, though I was surprised how much time passed over the course of the book because it is so short. But I didn't feel like the relationship that we're following was rushed at all. And this is like a 1.5 in a series, I guess. But I ended up really, really enjoying it. Would recommend it. The narration was fantastic. So again, I think it's really, really good. And I ended up giving this particular one 4 stars. So the next 3 all kind of go together. And these are the Skyward Flight novellas that came out recently. So I read Redawn. It's Sunreach, Redawn, and Evershore. So the first one is Sunreach is where we follow FM. And FM is a character that you meet in the first book in Skyward. And it's always a character that I wanted to understand a little bit better. And I felt like this book gave me that understanding. And we also see a cute relationship develop that I've been waiting for a while. So I loved that. In Redawn, we're following Alanik. Alanik is a character that we meet in Starsight. And she had a very different story than I was expecting, but it ended up being really enjoyable for me all the way through. I know my husband didn't love this one quite as much. He didn't enjoy Alanik's perspective, but I feel like I enjoyed seeing her perspective as she's not from our initial Skyward Flight. She's kind of adopted into Skyward Flight later. Really, I think added a different dynamic to the story that I wasn't expecting. And I really had a good time listening to her audiobook as well. And then by far my favorite of the 3 is Evershore. This is Jorgen's book. Jorgen is the love interest of Spensa. And I really loved seeing his perspective in a book. Jorgen is a character that you would occasionally get glimpses of his mind. But this book centered on him was amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Like 10 out of 10 might be my favorite book in the Skyward world at all right now. I feel like this book had a great character arc because we have who we thought Jorgen was and then we see who Jorgen really is. And it's really amazing. I loved it so very much. And yes, like I cannot wait for more in this series. Like everything that's going on right now is so cool and so good. And I just can't wait. Just can't wait. I do have 2 digital arcs that I've read that I don't have physical copies of currently. So I will talk about those briefly and then we'll move into the rest of the books. So first up, I have Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I did receive a NetGalley arc of this particular one, but this is stunning. I gave this 4.5 stars. This did not read like a debut. There were some things within the pacing that could have been smoothed out a little bit, but I think that was an editing thing more than a writing thing. And I really had a great time with this book. Essentially, we are following, oh, I forgot the main character's name, but we're following this girl who is the daughter of the moon goddess. But the moon goddess isn't supposed to have a daughter. And so when the powers that be find out, she's like, basically her life is at stake. And so she ends up being sent away by her mother to protect her. And this is about her trying to save her mom in the same instance. And it's really fantastic. I don't want to say too much because I feel like the less you know going into this book, other than it's going to talk about the Chinese myth of the moon goddess, the more enjoyable it will be for you. So would recommend this. I've been putting it in as many hands as I can at the bookstore that I work at. So yes, would recommend this book. And then the other arc that I've read that I have not talked about yet is Savage Road by Christine Feehan. This is the sequel to Annihilation Road. This is Savage in Seychelles. I'm giving this one 3 stars. This is a story that is not going to be for everyone. It's clearly written for a particular person. We know that Savage is a sadist. And so the romantic and sexual dynamic of this couple is not going to be for everybody. It is not my favorite dynamic. I can't lie. It's a little much for me personally, but I can appreciate the people that Christine Feehan wrote this book for. And so I think this book has a time and a place, but I would recommend Annihilation Road over Savage Road unless you know that you like a sadist in your hero. So, all right, we've got a few more books to talk about, so let's finish this up, shall we? First up, I finally finished Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan. I do think this is my favorite book in the series at this point. There's so much that happens in this book. I mean, we're 11 books in, so I can't really say anything in a wrap-up like this, other than this book feels like it's Matt's book. I loved it so much. I'm loving Matt more and more as the story goes on, and I'm really excited to continue on with this series once I finish my current audiobook. Next, I read my translated book for this month, and that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Pardon me if my pronunciation of her name is wrong. In this book, we're following a woman named Kiko. Kiko has never felt like she really fit in life anywhere. And as she's attending college, she gets a part-time job at a convenience store called Smile Mart. And she feels like that's where she understands society and humanity even more. And she's not been in romantic relationships or anything like that up to this point because she's just kind of awkward and doesn't really fit in anywhere, other than at Smile Mart, where she's very good at her job. This is about how another worker at Smile Mart ends up coming into her life and affecting it in ways that she didn't expect. And it's about how things change for her, and she moves forward and progresses and learns who she really is as a person. And it's fantastic. I'm not going to say too much more. The translation on this, I think, was really well done. It felt pretty easy to understand. I'm trying to remember who the translator is. Ginny Takemori. That's who it is. I'm like, I know it's somebody who does a lot of Japanese. But yes, I'm trying to be better and learning more about translated works. But I think this is a great place to start if you're wanting to step into translation and you're at least vaguely familiar with Japanese culture. I think this is a really good read. Next is one that I read primarily on audio, but I still owned physically, and that is Heartless by Gina Showalter. In this one, we're following a man who is fey and has way too much power. His sister was basically stolen from him, and he is out to seek vengeance. In doing so, he comes across the reincarnated version of his rival's wife, but she happens to be a video gamer from our world who ends up transported into this, and she is in love with him. And he starts to fall in love with her, and it's about their story. And so Kesar wants nothing but vengeance. Will he sacrifice his love for Cookie in the process. And it's amazing. I really enjoyed this. I really like Gina Showalter's writing. If you like the Lords of the Underworld series, this kind of has a lot of those same feels and vibes. So I would definitely check this one out. Okay, so the last 3 books I have here were all buddy reads that I've done so far this month. So the first one I've got here is Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. I buddy read this one with Tori over at Novel Life. This is definitely a family saga, and you get to know the dynamic between Koreans and Japanese at this point in history. This starts in the early 1900s and goes till about the 60s. And I feel like it was very interesting. I learned a lot about that side of the world in that time in history through this family saga, and it's very well done. I will definitely be picking up more from Min-Jin Lee in the future. And yes, would definitely recommend picking this one up. I don't know for sure if this one was translated. I couldn't find a translator or who did the translation easily, so I don't know for sure. But either way, really enjoyed it. Felt like I learned a lot from it. These next 2 buddy reads I did with Lindsay over at Lindsay Tut. The first one I have here is The Righteous by Renee Ahdieh. This is the 3rd book in the Beautiful series. And this one kind of takes a break from the couple that we've primarily been following. And we follow 2 side characters who have kind of on and off had feelings for one another. And they are basically forced into a fake engagement in the Fae world. And it's about them growing closer together and how that affects the bigger story at large. It was so good. I think it's my favorite book in the series so far, so I'm giving it 5 stars. I had a great time with this one. Would definitely recommend the series. And again, I feel like each book has gotten better in this particular series. So yes, if you like vampires, definitely give it a try. And then last but not least is the one that I finished most recently, and that is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. Now, I liked The Hating Game, but I loved Second First Impressions. I feel like the dynamic between these 2 characters was much more engaging for me. I guess it was done in a way that was more relatable for me personally, and so I ended up really enjoying this one. And I gave this one 5 stars. This is my favorite Sally Thorne to date, though I have not read 99% Mine yet. Though the general consensus is that one takes a dip down. And I know not everybody loved this one either. The hero's a little bit hard to love at times, but I really just adore him as a person. And I really am looking like Ruthie and Teddy are just fantastic. I really love them. And I'm jealous of Teddy's hair. We'll just put it that way. I did mostly listen to this on audio, and I think the audio narration is absolutely fantastic for this one. So again, would recommend. So friends, that is everything I've got to say for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you've read in the month of January and what you're loving currently. If you're here just because you love me, leave a turtle emoji for Second First Impressions, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Was it all just a dream, just all in my head?